Good morning. You're listening to Making Life Brighter Radio, and I'm your host, Winifred Adams. And today we have a recap show on the state of the Iran war. This is important. We've got some updates and we've got some things that are pressing that have come in since we last talked with Sergeant Kotel last week. And he gave a historical rundown from Afghanistan and what happened in Benghazi all the way until the current state of affairs and the war in Iran now. So thank you for listening. You can share, and I'm going to invite you to follow me along on Twitter, or excuse me, X, at Winifred Adams. That's WINIFREDADAMS. And if you follow along there, I am going through quite a bit of data daily at this juncture, especially with various different narratives. And that's what I really want to focus on today. We may also have a special guest coming in. We'll see if he can make it, but if he is, he'll have some perspective on what we're talking about as well from a firsthand point of view. Let's start the show by saying thank you to our sponsor and BP Machine, Black Law Manufacturing, up in Edmonton, Canada, and they have your solution to all your shipping and large transport with their specialty of a swivel. And so you can check that out at BPLP Machine. And more specifically, I'm going to give you that right here. They are specifically using their swivel to be able to move heavy loads through different areas. And so I'd like to draw your attention to that because they've been a sponsor for this show, and they have been helping with all over the world moving heavy loads through small areas. And those heavy loads are actually able to be moved with much less manpower on account of the fact that they can take these swivels, put them in, and move lights and things that are in the way while they move these heavy machinery. So BP Machine and Black Law Manufacturing has been sponsoring our show, helping bring awareness to the world through making life brighter and making other lives brighter by saving lots and lots of money for different townships across America and the world. So you can reach out to them if you have some oil drilling tool manufacturing needs, and or you are looking to you're looking for help with drill motor solutions specifically. So Black Law Manufacturing Inc. up in Edmonton, Canada, and they have that traffic light swivel like I told you about, and that is pretty special. So check that out at blbp.com and or Black Law Manufacturing Inc. So on today's show, I want to jump right in. We've got some special topics today, and some of those topics incoming are what's going on in the world. And what's happening in the world is multi-layered. So I'd like you to follow along with me on X at winifredadams.com. I'm actually going to go ahead and share my screen to pull up some of the things that I've featured there that I want you to focus on. I'm inviting you to take a look at the various narratives that are going on, and those narratives are something that is really it's greater than us. Let's put it that way. It's greater than us. So what we're looking at here is there are a few narratives going on in the world right now, and that one of them is that there's going to be a large false flag attack here in the United States, and particularly on the West Coast. They're warning. Gavin Newsom got on yesterday and he was talking about this. The FBI is warning of these attacks as retaliation from Iran. However, that retaliation may in fact be its own false flag event by way of other people's commentary. So there's multi-layers of what people are saying out there, and it is an interesting narrative. Some are saying that, in fact, the U.S. West Coast is potentially a target at this point from deep sea, underwater submarines and other things. And so Los Angeles has been listed as a target currently. And additionally, we are looking at the potential that that is an in-house false flag event whereby people can blame that and are blaming that instead on Israel as an in-house event. There's another narrative that I want to bring to your attention, and that other narrative is that the new leader, the new supreme leader in Iran, has been put in place specifically and is just a carryover. And the fact that President Donald Trump is not worried about that in any way speaks to the fact that he feels very confident that this war is almost done. And yet there are other narratives because the Strait of Hormuz is now compromised and what's really going on. One particular narrative is talking about there being billions and billions of CIA monies and trafficking monies, laundering monies buried underneath Iran. And those monies are gold in particular, and warehouse monies are being extricated in this particular operation. Another narrative is that there is a purposeful event of shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. And the additional narrative is that, in fact, the objective has been reached and oil prices are going up, gas prices are going up. That's not really to our advantage necessarily, but the control of the Middle East theater, or the change of hands of control in the Middle East theater, is what is up at the moment. So there are different narratives. Let's start with banking. So they feel that from a more patriotic narrative, a Republican narrative, there is a change of the banking system currently in play at the same time this is happening. With the change of that banking system, what's happening is that the US Treasury has been taken over, and that Treasury is now under white hat control and will be the new directive of banking in the United States and the world going forward. We also see that Elon Musk is launching his X money in the next month, and specifically in April. So this has now taken the attention of many people, and it is by way of what they call an app. And as he controls what Doge is investigating and doing, it's supposedly going back into this bombing with Iran, and where much of the slush fund monies were actually moved. Now, we spoke last week with Sergeant William Cotel, retired CENTCOM officer, intelligence officer, and he gave a very succinct rundown of the history of what happened in the Middle East from the time of Benghazi onward. And we also heard from Shannon DeRivit, and she told of her firsthand account and story of what went on. And this speaks to the narrative of the hidden monies and the banking. So where monies were transferred under the Obama administration, and even in that whole time frame, that is seemingly part of the narrative that's coming forward of extricating and locating those funds. Why were they allocated that direction to begin with? What change of arms took place for those monies, and where are those assets now? We spoke of that last week. We talked about the assets that were left behind, which were in the millions and millions of dollars, also from the unlawful withdrawal from Afghanistan. But today, 12 or 13 days into this war, currently in Iran, we have supposedly a few different narratives. And now the distraction narrative, which usually comes about at this point in time where we are being asked to be vigilant in the United States and on the West Coast in particular, because there is a warning that there could be an attack on the West Coast of the United States at this point. So as we go along, we can see that there are a variety of different things happening simultaneously. So number one that's happening and has happened in America currently is that the Treasury has been redirected and sort of taken over and will be out of black hat control, more into white hat control, so they say. And then we have the X monies coming down the pike with Elon Musk in April. We also have the discovery of hidden monies that William spoke of last week, along with what they're saying is in the Middle East, and I particularly under Iran at this point. And so with those, we have a special guest coming in here, and we'll have him join us in just a minute. But these narratives are front and center because people are put on high alert. Some are warning that, in fact, we want to be careful about travel. We want to be careful about large gatherings. And others are saying that's just a false flag event. And these things are much more worldly in 3D in reality. So how is this affecting us in the world? How is this actually coming to pass in the world and affecting us right now? Well, what is happening is that we have an opportunity to witness the global effect of the shutdown of that commerce over in the Strait of Hormuz and what each country is doing. From the latest intel that's coming in, several different Middle Eastern countries are not in agreement with the continuation of this. China just made a move accordingly. Russia just made a move accordingly. And the United States is apparently withdrawing troops at this point in time from the Middle Eastern theater. Now, I don't have a military verified source to say that. I can't tell you firsthand that that's actually happening, but that's what is supposedly taking place. Going back to the technicalities of the banking, if everything works through the banking, the change of the banking at this point in time in history may be a significant or have a significant impact on how other countries are coming to the table. The fact that there's tariffs that were placed all over the world, and those tariffs are dictating some of the terms of this agreement. President Trump spoke about the upcoming cryptocurrency and things like that in his State of the Union address. He talked about the future of money and banking in the United States and that would be coming very soon. He also spoke of the fact that this war is essentially over. It'll come to a close very quickly, and that the impacts will be minimized. There are other on-the-ground narratives talking about China's leak of the bombing of US bases in Jordan and other places right now. And some of that information incoming is showing that the US is being very heavily bombarded in those neighboring countries. However, the strikes continue. And now today, as a matter of fact, Pakistan has included themselves in the theater and bombed India. Hopefully India doesn't feel the need to join in, but we are seeing an escalation from multiple countries at this point in time. Now, there is also chatter about prophecy. If we take it to the point of people talking about prophecy, we talked about Kim Clement over time. We've talked about people that have mentioned these types of things and that they've come to pass. And there was one particular one that I've showcased today on my X account that you can see. And that prophecy speaks to the burning of America, and from the inside out, not from the outside in. So we want to be careful how we proceed in our daily routine here in the US. But looking at the world theater, this, as you know, we've covered this extensively here on Making Life Brighter. The banking has quite a bit to do with how the world functions and interacts with other countries. The fact that the tariffs we're dealing in a roundabout way with the cartels. And there's been Venezuela and Mexico and now Cuba coming. And so the US is intending to go into Cuba accordingly and has gone into Iran. Now we have China making a move toward Iran and supplying Iran with different munitions as well as supplies. And Russia has now accordingly stepped up to the plate today, apparently in conjunction with that. So these are the narratives that are taking place today. There are many layers to this, but first and foremost for the peoples of the world to continue to be level-headed and yet aware, particularly on the West Coast. So we have a special guest that's going to join us today, and we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back, and we have more for you right here on Making Life Brighter. We have a very special show for you today. Stay tuned. And we're back. You're listening to Making Life Brighter Radio, and I'm your host, Winifred Adams. Thank you for joining us today for this special segment and an update to what's going on in our world theater. Last week, we were focused with former CENTCOM intelligence officer, Sergeant William Cotel, and this week I am recapping the current events that are going on, and we also have a special guest. We've been talking about the Iran war and the theater, the banking, and how that may affect us. Also, the warnings on the West Coast and what's going on in our United States borders. So I'd like to bring along a special guest, and he has been in the Middle East. He's actually worked on oil rigs and worked with the industry of oil. I'm going to share that with you a little bit more. He is a Houston-based engineer, operations leader with more than 4 decades of global experience across the oil, gas, and industrial infrastructure sectors. He has actually built a career at the intersection of engineering, project execution, and strategic problem solving, drilling, and complex field operations across the Americas, the Middle East, Africa, Asia, and Europe. And it has taken him into some of the more controversial territory at times when there has been warring nations actually in the middle of this. But he's had to work in remote desert and offshore drilling programs to unconventional and technically challenging field conditions where he had to adapt on the fly. And we're going to talk about that because his engineering judgment turned out to be critical at those junctures. Known for bridging deep technological expertise and hands-on leadership, George has collaborated with teams across diverse cultures and operating contexts, bringing together operational discipline, innovation, and real world experience to deliver complex energy projects. And he actually began in Patagonia, involved through international work and entrepreneurship. He approaches all these engineering feats with leadership and resilience, and I would say diplomacy in some cases. So welcome for George for joining us today. Welcome to Making Life Brighter.
Thank you, Winifred. I really appreciate it, and thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you for coming on. And so let's start with your career. You're originally from Argentina, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And what brought you forward into the oil drilling sector?
Uh, Automation, believe it or not, introduction
Automation.
of automation into the oil field, into the drilling rigs. Later on in my career, I went to work based on in the Middle East for drilling specifically throughout all the Middle Eastern countries, except Iran, of course.
And so you were based there for how long?
All in all, 8 years.
And what did you do specifically there?
Based on Dubai. I was the regional manager for operating rigs or rig operations.
And oil drilling and specifically.
Yes, correct. I worked specifically, well, globally, from Venezuela all the way uh, to Middle East, North Africa, Africa as entirely, and but most of our rigs and our operations were in the Middle East, countries like Iraq, Afghanistan, all the GCC countries,
Well,
which is the
I,
yeah. Go
I
ahead.
understand that you walked into some dicey situations from time to time. Let's talk about that first. And what countries were warring when you had to play diplomat?
There is always conflicts between the drilling activities and sometimes in the middle of things that uh, involves uh, at that time very different cultures and very different point of views of warlords in the middle of the operation of the rigs that even though they are secured by the drilling contractors and the owners of these fields, there are always conflicts, and we had to bring uh, several different operations and to level um, different. It's hard to explain.
Well,
Uh,
there were two different countries that were opposed, and you
the,
had to go between them, correct?
that's right. There are yes, especially in Kurdistan um, countries. They have different opinions of where the places are defined or are their own places or not. We're in the middle of drilling and trying to secure the well before
Before someone
war.
else comes
Yeah,
along and
before
decides it's
work
theirs.
start. Yeah, yeah.
And so, of the countries that you worked in, what dynamics did you see the most of in regards to the beginning of a drilling and then someone coming along to hijack that drilling? What were the most um, intricate relationships that you experienced?
Most of the time, the apple is political, and what they try to instigate is get money for the operating companies uh, before the drilling section is done and the well is producing. So those are the main problems as far as being unprotected and being working in the middle of situations that are completely unexpected.
And who is the protector of those particular rigs? Is it the country they're in, or if you're out at sea, for example, who has jurisdiction over those particular wells?
The operating companies,
So whoever is
the international operating companies.
is there a
That they,
board for that oversees that and determines jurisdiction?
no, the field is developed by a bidding process, and that bidding process buys the piece of land uh, or rent the piece of land uh, in order to be drilled. So the drilling opens up, the country opens up the drilling, the operating companies uh, go and bid, and then they call us, the drillers, to get into the business of the drilling.
And so they basically can lease land or lease.
They usually provide the security. Um, usually, they provide the security, and that security is sometimes fails. And since we, the drillers, are in the middle of the situation, we need to fix uh, that in order to continue and finish our part, which is the drilling process, and put the wellhead on.
Who is the most, or what is the most prolific company over there currently? The
Well,
drilling.
there are several different companies. You got BP, you got Shell, you got Wintershall, we got um, all the NOCs and IOCs, international companies and national companies too,
And
doing the perspective and the drilling.
and so of those companies currently, who's most at risk today given this current war?
Well, a lot of Americans companies have pulled out. Uh, there are left of companies that they are usually in a place of conflicts. Uh, there are some Russian companies that they're drilling right now. Uh, there are some companies that they are not U.S. companies.
And from your point of view and having been in that theater, what's most at stake at the moment?
Um, from the operating perspective and analyzing what is happening right now, I think the accomplishment of putting the price of the oil above $100 a barrel is, or it could have been, one of the targets of uh, of the current situation.
Raising the price of oil and basically pressuring the economy. But we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and we're going to go into what that means for the world and how that is, and also hear a firsthand account of a negotiation that proved to be mandatory in order to keep the rig going. So you're listening to Making Life Brighter Radio. We have special guest George on today, and he has worked all over as an engineer in the Middle East and beyond. He also has a specialty, and we'll get into the swivels at some point. But I want to draw attention to why this is important. And we see clearly on the news that there are some red flag warnings going on right now. People are being asked to consider whether or not they fly. The West Coast is being warned on national news, and we want to look at this entire theater. So you're listening to Making Life Brighter. I'm going to ask you to follow along on X at Winifred Adams. And there I distill through quite a bit of information, both positive and current events, so that you can follow along and see maybe what's going on that I'm talking about regarding the banking and other things. Stay tuned. We have more for you right here on Making Life Brighter today, and we will be right back. Thank you for listening to Making Life Brighter Radio. I'm your host, Winifred Adams, and today we are covering the current events that are going on in our world and how that impacts us, especially here in the United States. And we have red flag warnings that are going on the West Coast. We hope those don't come to pass, but there's many narratives that are being played out currently, and people are on high alert for not only the price of gas at the pumps, but what's really going on and how long this will last overseas. Additionally, where any kind of retaliatory strikes may take place and why. And so we have a special guest on today who's an engineer. It's worked in the oil fields. And we want to shout out our special thanks to Black Law Manufacturing out of Edmonton, Canada, who is the manufacturer of the swivel. And we'll get into what that is and how that's helping countries around the world. But BP Machine and Black Law Manufacturing is helping with oil drilling tools. And so, George, let's go back into your time in the theater overseas in the Middle East in particular. Let's talk about a particular experience where you were cast between two companies and countries that were looking to take jurisdiction. Only that those countries rather were fighting. So let's talk about your experience there.
Okay. Sure, no problem. That was I was in northern Iraq, and in Erbil specifically, and north of Erbil. We were drilling there several years ago, and there were two tribes basically fighting each other, and every morning they have conflicts, and we were right in the middle of the drilling, and specifically on the critical path where we were finding the oil, and we have we have well-controlled situations, and we, of course, tolerate, we couldn't. Um, we couldn't tolerate the firefighting that they had between those two tribes. So we need to call them about and trying to explain them that the the worst thing that it could ever happen before they claim the path of that oil well, it needed to be done, and peace needs to be at place in order for us to finish the drilling and finish uh, that specific part of the drilling. So we, upon ourselves, we called them up. We're trying to arrange a meeting, and that meeting went very successful. And they give us time uh, to rig down, finish the well, rig down, and leave. I don't know what happened afterwards, but that is the the current situation. Well, that is the situation that once upon uh, that area was in Erbil in North Iraq. Um, Things
It's
like that leads sometimes to believe that the unorganized or lack of organization for these companies exist, but things are getting out of hand sometimes, and that is
and, and do you
what happened.
routinely see military come in around this because oil is such a hot commodity and a necessity in the world until we go to free energy, of course, but oil is king. So do you see that? Do you often find the militaries need to step in with these types of disputes regarding the companies, or is it left to the jurisdiction of private companies?
Both. What happened in those years, yes, it was a lot of military involvement, and we were asking that the priority number one was alerting uh, the military through the country manager that it was in constant communication with the military. Sometimes things do not happen in that level, but it happens. For example, when we were drilling in the middle of two countries in Latin America, that um, they were fighting as well, but they were drug lords, and we were right in the middle as well. So we are we're trying to make a peace out of sometimes problems that we need to solve in order to finish the well. Uh, and those things are completely unpredictable. Those things are things that it just happen. And of course, we are all workers, and we work uh,
Well,
for the things that
basically,
we promised that we were going to do. Yes,
you're
go ahead.
you're a neutral party in this, and whether it's drug cartels or it's actual uh, different countries and companies within different countries, but you're alluding to the fact that quite a bit of this that uh, was it is centered around cartels for oil. Now, that's interesting because last week we talked about and touched on someone that was one of the greatest cartel leaders in the Middle East that was captured by the US and then set free again in the last few years. Um, we touched on that. We also spoke about how some of the cartels are um, being shored up on account of these tariffs. So you were aware of that at the time of working. How did you navigate through cartel territory yourselves? Did you go in a little with a little trepidation, or was it, the guidelines are set when you walked in?
No, the guidelines they are not there. They are not guidelines per se. There are things that you discover along the way, and things that we as drilling contractors we need to negotiate in order um, to get the job accomplished, which is not only the engineering part and the well design, and there is always conflict with people. Um, Once upon a time, I was in the jungle in Guatemala, El Petén, drilling, and we find out ourselves in the middle of the jungle being turned on fire.
Oh,
And we didn't know what was the reason why it was the fire. It comes about that through um, some residents, they've been moved away from their own land and they're trying to recuperate it, but we were drilling.
right.
We
So
had
you're,
nothing to do. We had nothing to do with it, but we had to deal with it. Um, and the dealings was we had to evacuate the site.
wow.
So,
So you're put into political battles when you're just going in for a job.
yeah, we just worked there. We
So
think that everything is fine.
what what is your take currently on the world as you look at this? Your personal opinion, having been in the field and seen various points of view from different countries in the world. What is your take on what you see happening right now with this war in Iran and having some background in Venezuela too?
um, okay, to me, it's very simple. There is always a cascade of major events that the turning point is to get uh, or keep uh, us leaders. Um, there is no, to me, there is not a coincidence that we secure the oil in Venezuela and then we went for Iran to make um, the balance of the stability of the world in unbalance at the beginning, and uh, in about 9 months, everything will be stabilized. Uh, I believe that there are reasons other than political or religious reasons, and they're most economical. There is no doubt that the oil leads the energy by far, much more than any other energy source.
Well, can I interrupt you on that point? Can you just speak quickly to the difference between, say, fracking and oil drilling?
Yes, fracking is what we're doing here in the United States. Fracking is something that you need to break a piece of rock that is being impregnated by oil. Uh, the oil in the Middle East is completely different. You perforate, you get to the pay zone, and in that pay zone, you extract the oil, and it's like extraction like a sponge. Fracking is completely different because it's something that you need to have pumped in a lot of psi, a lot of pressure that you need to put into the rock in order to fracturate it and then produce the oil. In the Middle East, it's not like that. The sand, you drill, and the cost of lifting one to the other is about 5 to 10 times fold.
Wow. So obviously drilling in the Middle East is cheaper. Is that what we'd say? from that?
Yes,
It's easier to extract the
easier
oil.
and cheaper. The lifting cost is cheap. Is cheaper than here.
Hmm. And the damage to the environment, because there's always the cost to the environment with fracking. What is the
Well,
damage in the Middle East? Is there?
yeah, it's you need to you need to put the things in perspective. 99% of the well that is produced is injected by either reinjection, which is the water produced, which is 99% water or 98% water, and then you recuperate it with along the with the water. You recuperate the oil, you filter it, and and you produce oil that way.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the state of the oil industry. And we're also going to talk about black lung manufacturing and their swivel. George has quite a bit of knowledge on that. So we'll be right back. You're listening to Making Life Brighter Radio. And today we're talking about the state of the world and the Iran war and talking about the upcoming warnings, the events, and the oil industry. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to Making Life Brighter. Today we have special guest George on, and he is an engineer in the oil industry and the drilling industry specifically. And we were talking last segment about how it is to frack or to drill directly into the Middle East. But we're going to segue for a minute, and then we're going to get back into that along with what he sees going on from his perspective and insider point of view from drilling. But George, let's talk about oil drilling tools, and let's talk about one of the products of black lung manufacturing specifically, which is the swivel. So the swivel could have saved the Dallas parade this year. Texacoin stepped up to try and do that, but next year it absolutely can. So tell us a little bit about this swivel and why this is such a unique device that could go in all around the world and how it can help large loads across the world. What is it? What is the swivel?
Yeah. The swivel is something that has been around for many years. Not in U.S. As a major selling point. There is a lot of opportunities for this swivel. Um, Now, um, the swivel is being created by a company, by several companies, but it's specifically for heavy loads and traffic lights. This is not. It's got nothing to do with the oil field, although we manufacture this swivel in order to accommodate really high loads, uh, like, for example, in the compressor systems, uh, um, compression units. They are built. They look like buildings. They are 2, 3 flats high, in order for this swivel is installed in a traffic light, so the traffic light will fold according to or following the road that the high loads and heavy loads are passing through.
So
That's a
if you had
swivel.
if you had a township, for example, with lights in the way, it could cost the township quite a bit of money to have individuals come, and it's an operation in order to move that out of the way so that something can be brought through. But with this intact and installed, you take away quite a bit of the cost of to the township or the city by having this device in place. And then heavy loads, whether it's military loads, whether it's just simply like the parades, anything can be brought through at a savings, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Under the civil point of view, that is 100% correct. They are installed along the what is called in United States the high load, high permit infrastructures, um, and that those infrastructures and that those the cost. The, I was in a I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago for the Tex DOT, and they were calculating that the savings were over $50,000 a week
Wow.
because because the in order to get um, other systems or non-systems, they need to lift and disassemble the traffic light. In this case, you swivel the traffic light so you make the path or the right of way for heavy and uh, loads, high loads, very, very fast and
So
very convenient because the cost is the one guy unpinning the swivel and moving 90 degrees.
amazing. Well, Black Law Manufacturing up in Edmonton, uh, Canada, Alberta, there is the manufacturer of these swivels, and also a sponsor of Making Life Brighter, helping us bring our messages further out into the world. So to put emphasis on that technology, because they also manufacture specialty oil drilling tools. And that's how this comes to pass in the show. And George is an expert in both of those and has knowledge of both of those things. So if you're interested in how to save your township some money, you can check out Black Law Manufacturing Inc. and Edmonton, Canada, BPLP LTD. And George, let's talk about again what's going on overseas and how the world will right itself. You hinted last segment that in a few months from now, there could be a balance and equality coming back. We have about 4 minutes left. How do you see what's taking place, and how does it affect the oil industry? What's going on right now, and how will it affect us?
Um, from my standpoint of view, again, I'm a driller, okay, by profession. Uh, uh, Nobody wants war. Nobody in the world wants conflict. Everybody loves their own families. Everybody tries to protect their families. And the world at peace, even though it doesn't exist, because we humans and we are all constantly in conflict. Nevertheless, what we need to learn is that there are spaces that they need to be created in um, for the for the good of the countries that they are a power.
Right. And so as it comes to pass, if they close the Strait of Hormuz, what then? And how long do you think that would go on? Because you know what basically goes through that all the time, what's going to
Yes.
happen?
Well, um, I wish I can know. Okay. Again, it's my humble opinion and point of view. I think what is going to happen is things in the Middle East needs to change, and they need to change for unity. And even though for 17 or 1400 years it's been in disagreement, only this party is new because it's been only 47 years that a country decided to be on the side of religion.
Right.
And that is by any means, by any country in the whole world, um, it's never been seen, and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't work.
So
So
you're
that's
saying
why I
keep it.
believe it needs to change.
Okay. So if it were not necessarily religious, but it were just strictly business or more for peace and business, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, correct.
And so
The
how
the
come,
the three phases system, it hasn't been working, never worked. You can't mix politics, religion, and and banking systems in one whole balloon. It's impossible.
well, how come, let's say Venezuela was such a powerhouse compared to Argentina, which has so much more land, and Chile, for example, and obviously Brazil is a powerhouse in oil drilling, BP and all that, right?
Yeah.
So how is it that Venezuela had so much? Is it because of the gold or the oil?
No, is the definitely is the oil and the reserve of oil that they have is even larger eh, than the whole Middle East combined. I mean, it's big, it's huge.
That's a good point because most people don't
I'm
really know
talking
that.
yeah, I'm talking about reserves,
Mhm.
untapped oil and energy.
And so these other countries, like your country, Argentina and Chile, they don't have those reserves.
No, well, they have fracking, for example. Chile is impossible. They don't have they import most of their energy
And they also have a lot
oil.
of earthquakes, so it would make it difficult to disturb their surface more so, I would think. But George, we have to close. We
Oh,
are coming to the end, and I would love to talk with you more because I think this is fascinating. I like your point of view very much in terms of what's going on in the world and how we navigate this. But to your point, we need to come under a more peaceful umbrella with a different purpose and a different point of view. So, thank you for joining us today on Making Life Brighter. What makes your life brighter, George?
my family.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Love that. Well, that's true. May you go jolly and go out and make somebody else's life brighter. Thank you for joining us today and stay safe, everyone. We're at a dicey moment in time and we need to navigate carefully. We'll see you next week right here on Making Life Brighter. Please share and you can go back to the archives on the host page and listen again. Thank you so much. Go jolly.